Hello, my Bill for 1000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. If not, hope it gets better from here. All right, we are back with another Coffeehouse Crime. This one is titled The Sinister Murder Plot. Oh, the Sinister Murder Plotted on the Dark Web. The case of Rie Isogai is that. This. I don't know. Its name, I think. Let's get into today's story. Go ahead, turn the lights down low, put on something comfy, cup with something special. Oh, let's get traumatized for life.
On August 17th, 2007, from the intimidating depths of the dark web, an ominous message appeared. The message read, "I'm looking for a partner in crime. Would anyone like to work with me?" Two other individuals
Like, okay, what do you mean by partner in crime? Like, whenever I say, hey, I need a partner in crime, it's not usually to commit an actual crime. It's just I'm going to do something stupid and I want somebody with me. So, I mean, what kind of crime? I need some back info.
would answer back, thus creating an underground friendship between three newly formed criminals. And moving forward, the trio
Okay.
plotted an elaborate and evil scheme to get rich. Their plans
You know, nope. It's actual partner in crime. Actual crime.
would target the vulnerable, and ultimately, it would cost the life of a terrified individual and leave a nation reeling in anger. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, folks. My name is Adrian, and welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime.
How's it going,
Today we're
Truman?
looking at the disturbing case of Rie Isagai. Infamously known as the Dark Site Murder in Japan, this case brought many questions around the nation's death penalty, though shockingly, it barely made any international headlines. Before we begin, and just to let you know,
Look, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you it wouldn't matter if it did make international headlines. I probably still wouldn't have heard about it. I don't watch news things. It depresses me.
post true crime and strange cases here weekly, so if that does sound like your kind of thing, please consider subscribing to the channel, it really does help me out. And now, with that said, please grab yourself a coffee, pull up a seat, and get ready for the deep dive. This is the case of Rie Isagai.
I never got that.
Welcome back to Japan, folks. Found in the Far East
Once again, it's so freaking pretty.
of Asia, this island nation is tucked away to the west of Russia, China, and Korea. It's a highly fascinating country, and with thanks to its geographical positioning, it experiences a jaw-dropping variety of seasons. We're talking several meters of snow in the north here, which greatly contrasts to its tropical paradise in the south. This case takes us near the middle of Japan's main island, Honshu. Aichi Prefecture is home to 7.5 million residents, and is often referred to as one of Japan's main manufacturing hubs.
Well, that just looks like shit compared to the other places that we've seen. Why show me this? I don't want to see this. That's ugly. Take me back to the pretty.
Its capital, Nagoya, is the country's fourth most populous city, and landmarks include Atsuta Shrine, a tree-lined Shinto pilgrimage site, and the restored 17th century fortress of Nagoya Castle. And, of course, talking about one of my most favourite topics, the city is famous for its Nagoya-style tebasaki, Japanese chicken wings with shatteringly crispy skin coated in garlic, ginger, and black pepper. Now, today's
Damn. If it wasn't chicken, that sounds amazing.
video requires more explanation before we get into the story. Although many of us would have already heard of the mysterious dark web and its disturbing connotations, knowing what it actually means is very crucial here.
Yeah, I have watched people open up mystery boxes from the dark web. It's traumatizing.
Any standard browser and punch in any old URL, and typically you're surfing the web. But taking it one step further, if you want to access something confidentially, such as medical records,
Honestly, though, I think the first time I actually really think I heard anything about the dark web was a long time ago. I watched uh some of y'all probably seen some of their videos on here. I used to watch Mindset TV before I ever started doing reactions. Like the first video I ever watched was him and I think his girlfriend opening a dark web mystery box. He did several more mystery boxes after that, but that was like the first one I ever watched. That's the first real time I heard anything about the dark web was on that little YouTube channel, and it's not little, it's a huge YouTube channel, but yeah.
towards your male or fee-based content like OnlyFans, you have to access the deep web to find it. Which, by the way, did you know that around 98% of the internet is actually classed as the deep web? The long story short here is that if you want to access confidential things, then the URL you follow has to be both encrypted and time-based so no one else can follow it. Well, we're going even deeper than this. The dark web is a subset of the deep web that is intentionally hidden away, and furthermore requires a specific browser such as Tor to access it. Now, there are good reasons for this. One example is to hide customer and consumer data. And of course, with the intent to make something private, also comes a demand to exploit it. Which is surprisingly very easy to do. It's almost impossible to avoid the usage of the deep web and even the dark web. And with no adequate restrictive measures put in place, it is a free market for both sleuths and criminals to operate at will. Sharing your personal data online is a lot easier than you may realize. Every time you sign up to a website or subscribe to a newsletter, it often comes with a terms of service for you to accept.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it is as simple as that. By accepting the site policy or terms of service, you might actually be giving consent for your data to be sold and resold by hundreds of data brokers. This is where the real problem exists. Many of these data companies hold personal information like your name, gender, online alias, shopping habits, and even your home address. Smaller consequences include spam and targeted ads. However, in the wrong hands, people with the right information and a vested interest in you could do a lot more damage. And this is where this video's sponsor comes in. Incogni. Incogni helps you protect your privacy by removing your personal data off the market. They do this by reaching out to data brokers on your behalf, requesting your personal data to be removed, and then finally dealing with any objections. And even better, the whole process is automated. Simply sign up to Incogni with my link and use the code CRIME, create an account, and the automated system will immediately get to work for you. After signing up, Incogni was able to detect 71 data brokers with my personal information. They got straight to work requesting my data to be removed, with one request being completed within the hour. You're also able to see the type of data broker, what information they carry, and even the risk factor. Protect your online privacy today. Incogni is offering 60% off from the first 100 people who use my unique code CRIME below. Thank you to Incogni for sponsoring today's video. Thank you to you folks for supporting us content creators. And now let's get straight back into today's case. As I was saying, no one really knows the size of the dark web, but most estimates place it at around 5% of the entire internet, compared to 98% being the overarching deep web family, and only 2% being the typical non-restricted World Wide Web. Now, despite its ominous sounding name, not all of the dark web is used for illicit purposes, but indeed it is an area for
Damn, I'm learning all kinds of shit.
Scammers, fraudsters, and other illegal activity to flourish. And throughout recent years, felonious activity here has become more frequent, more severe, and even more creative. The worst corners of the dark web includes forgery and hacking, illegal pornography, and even murder for hire services. And on August 17th, 2007, amongst this dark virtual world, one fateful message appeared in the forums of one of these hidden websites. "I'm looking for a partner in crime," the message read. "I just got out of prison. Would anyone else like to work with me in the Tokai region?" The ominous message's author went by the username Yamashita, which was a pseudonym used for Yami no Shokuwan, roughly translating to the job of darkness in English. And the person behind it was a 40-year-old man who went by the name of Kenji Kawagishi. Kenji was not your typical stand-up citizen. Bullied as a child due to his ongoing
He looks shady, he looks shifty. He does, look at his face. Shifty face. I don't like it.
kidney disease, he became a delinquent in Japan society. And although he eventually settled down with a wife and 4 children after several minor convictions, he would sadly eventually return to the world of illegal activity. In August of 1999, he began to use the dark web to obtain, open and sell bank accounts, which could then be used for fraudulent activity. Although this brought in extra cash for the family, his spending habits rapidly outweighed this new stream of income. And by 2002, his apartment was ultimately seized due to tax fraud and missing mortgage repayments. Now, unfortunately, Kenji was also a—
How are you going to do that? I mean, What was he spending the money on? It wasn't his fucking mortgage.
Allegedly abusive towards his family. Yet, thankfully, his wife didn't put up with this bullshit. She and the kids fled for their safety shortly after these signs
He said bullshit. I like it.
started to appear, and eventually the two settled for divorce. But Kenji grew exhausted with his life after this, and between the years 2003 and 2007, he was in and out of prison on several convictions of fraud. Despite these charges, he continued to use the dark web after this, and often moved from job to job, which was usually in transport.
Got his teeth in him. Now he's addicted to it. Lost his whole damn family for it. That makes me. Got in all kinds of trouble. Had his life on track, family, kids, and just
Transportation or commercial security. At the time of posting his message on the dark web, he had just come out of prison on yet again more fraudulent activity, and was now living out of his car in Isai City. And after reaching out into the unknown world of the dark web, 3 other men responded. Just a heads up, but we're going to exclude one of them, as eventually he bailed out of the scheme and was never involved in this case. However, the other 2 were far more guilty. Tsukasa Kanda was a 36-year-old with a similarly troubled
he looks fucking shifty as hell too.
history to Kenji. Bullied at school and suffering from chronic headaches, he was also abused by his father. And this volatile and deeply harmful environment led Tsukasa to join local gangs and commit minor crimes. However, eventually, in 1989, he graduated from Takasaki Technical High School. He began to use the dark web in 1997, was convicted of fraud, and then found himself a job at the newspaper company Asahi Shimbun. Allegedly, he often got in trouble with his colleagues and his boss, and his take-home salary was so low that he received weekly pocket money from his girlfriend to support him at the time. And so, similar to Kenji, Tsukasa was also in debt and was financially desperate. Yoshitomo Hori, a 32
I mean, I hate to say it, but it really sounds like they felt like they had no other option after. Well, I don't know about the other guy, but that poor feller, not this one, but the one right before him, really sounded like he didn't have no other option. Like, I'm not condoning or supporting in any way. It just seems like, they're starting to get backed into a corner. You know what I mean?
2-year-old darts player from the same area also responded to the message. And although he had no prior criminal history, he was over 4 million yen in debt, the equivalent of $30,000 or £25,000. Although there were several other replies to the message on the dark web, Kenji selected these 2 to work with. And just a few days later, on August 21st, 2007, the 3 met at Yoshitomo's residence. It is here that they began to formulate a devious scheme to make money. All 3 men were in crippling debt, and blinded by both panic and greed, they simultaneously expressed a cold disregard for the welfare of others. Their drafts contained several plans, which included pickpocketing, kidnapping, and even a heist against a pachinko parlor, which, by the way, is a type of Japanese casino. The trio tried to conduct one of these plans the next day on August 22nd, and their plan was rather simple. Target a pachinko parlor customer, follow him home, and then abduct him and rob him of his money. However, after tailing his Lexus vehicle, they realized his home was alarmed and he had a dog, and so there was no way they were going to get him. After following another target home the next day, they were very disappointed to realize that he was in a very tight security building, and so, yet again, the heist was called off. The group came closest to making money when they used a stolen.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. People who gamble probably gonna have money. People who have money want to keep their money, and people who want to keep their money usually have security. That, or they can just afford to live in a better building that has security. I mean, common sense says.
Credit card to buy a gold necklace at the local Don Quixote. But sadly, or rather not sadly, this also failed. By the way, for those who don't know, Don Quixote is an incredible experience to have when visiting Japan. The buildings are usually massive and sells pretty much everything you can think of, and in a good way, I remember being absolutely overwhelmed when I went there. From instant noodles to underpants, frying pans to dog beds, and Pokemon costumes all the way through to, Tenga eggs. Don Quixote has you covered. It's kind of like a multi-level department store cross treasure hunt, and I bet my bottom dollar that you'll be sure to leave with a suitcase worths of stuff. The place sells really cool stuff, and not even sure why, but when I went on Quixote I bought 10 of these in like 10 different colours. Kinda cool though, right? Anyway, So it appears that
I
our
like
three
it.
men were not having any luck with their plans, and with their failure came both frustration and desperation. And tragically, the very next day, and after upping the ante, their devious schemes would come with some very harrowing consequences.
Oh shit. That's when things get crazy.
August 24th, 2007. It was a Friday, and at 10 PM that evening, young office worker Rie Isogai was walking through the streets of Nagoya to return home from her job. The day was long in the tooth, and with it being a Friday, the working week had overstayed its welcome. Rie worked in the office of a semi-local firm. Most of her tasks were administrative, meaning she was not someone particularly high-ranking in the company, but was just as essential to keep it ticking along. Trying to find recognition and reward for her hard work, she stayed
Important cog in the fucking robot of economy. Gotcha.
late to finish her duties that Friday, and by the time she had almost made it home that night, the streets of Kanagawa were dark and silent. But no worries. She only had a few more corners to walk to make it back to her front door. Looking into her past, Rie had always been a hard-working and thoughtful individual. She was born on July 20th, 1976, to her father Sueyoshi and mother Fumiko. Sadly, she was only a child when her father passed away, this tragically leaving both her and her mother to fend for themselves. But through this, the two formed an inseparable bond, and although she dropped out of high school, she impressed her mother by jumping straight into work. To add to this, Rie even held on to the dream of one day buying her mother a house. Rie loved board games. In fact, one of her favourites was called Go, and in her spare time, she often met friends and even made new ones at Go cafes across the city. She was a strong-willed person, yet caring all the same time, and now that she had reached her 30s,
It's too sweet. What's my rule? There we go. Oh,
she was focused on progressing her career, which takes us back to the story, to August 24th, 2007. Residing in Komei 2 of Chikusa Ward in Nagoya, Rie used the Higashiyama line to reach her local station at Motoyama. This was part of her usual commute, and once there, she made the 1-mile walk back home. It was just past 11 PM when she walked past an idle vehicle, and with no reason to be alarmed, she ignored it without giving it any second thought. It was at this moment, though, that the car made a U-turn and discreetly passed by Rie. Peering up, she noticed a man nervously looking around at the buildings, and as she approached him, he turned around to ask her a question politely. "I'm looking for the local convenience store. Do you know where I could find it?" Rie stopped to answer. However, before she could even answer him, she turned around to see another man lunge at her, and all in the meanwhile, the car she had spotted before had now hastily parked up next to them. Rie screamed out loud, but nobody in the neighbourhood had heard her, and before she even knew it, she was in the back of their vehicle, a vehicle that was now speeding off into the distance. The consequences of
do we? I don't know about you. I don't want to hear the cons. I don't want to know how bad things get. I don't. Oh, I don't. I just don't.
that night were discovered the very next day. A body was found around 35 miles northeast of Nagoya and in the mountains near Mitsunami. It had been partially buried near a bridge from Route 33, and tragically, this body belonged to Riya Isagai. She was discovered by the authorities just after 7 PM, meaning she had been missing for just over 20 hours. Despite being concealed in a remote location, she had been discovered very quickly for a very good reason, because the one to break the news would be none other than one of the killers themselves. Earlier that day, the authorities were greeted with a very concerning phone call, and
Are you fucking serious? Why would one of the killers do that? I mean, I guess glad they did. That way the body was found, but why?
after picking up the phone, the voice said, "I kidnapped a woman. I stole her money, killed her, and then buried her in Gifu Prefecture." As you can likely guess, the three men to abduct and kill Rie Isogai were Kenji, Yoshitomo, and Tsukasa, and she'd become their first and only victim from the dark web. After abducting Rie and planning to rob her of all her money, they then murdered her in cold blood, before moving 35 miles out of town and dumping her body. However, it seems like it didn't take long for Kenji's sanity to break, because by sunrise, he had become extremely paranoid. After making the call, he was detained by 7 police officers dispatched from the Midori police station, and after being questioned for 15 minutes, he was taken to the Mobile Investigations Unit before leading officers to the site. Now, Kenji was absolutely terrified of capital punishment. However, under Japanese law, he was not allowed to be executed if he surrendered himself first.
Really? So if you surrender yourself and you're not caught, you actually surrender yourself, they can't execute you? Really? I did not know that. I'm sure that's probably just for them. I don't think it really matters where I'm at. But that's still pretty cool.
And so, after his despicable actions, Kenji was left with 2 options: try to evade the law and risk his life, or give up his free life and guarantee survival. Kenji chose the latter, and in addition to this, he even confessed that he had the help of 2 other accomplices, and even provided both their names and addresses. Yoshitomo and Tsukasa were arrested.
I mean, I'm glad he did, but why did he? Like, he's the one that brought them all together and was like, hey, let's get some money. I mean, he's basically like the leader, the ringleader, right? What the fuck? I mean, I'm glad he did. Could be a hell of a lot worse, but this is not making any sense.
The very same evening, and just hours later, Rie's body would be formally identified by her mother. Naturally, Fumiko was distraught by the news. Rie was her one and only child, with a father who had died decades before. The entirety of her family had now been lost, and Rie's absence left a massive hole in her heart. She described identifying her daughter's body as an out-of-body experience, and despite her daughter's body's chilling condition, she hugged her tightly through the pain and anguish. Colleagues of Rie were devastated.
Damn, yo. That's fucking awful. I hope bad things happen to the people that did that though. I hope they
Too. They had known her for many years. Not only was she just a colleague, but she was also a friend too. By midnight, the Special Investigations Unit publicly announced Rie Isagai's murder. They further reported that 3 men had been arrested, and believed that no one else was at risk. Although only one had openly surrendered to the authorities, Kenji, Yoshitomo and Tsukasa all eventually confessed to their crimes. They told investigators that they had met through the dark web, and that the primary motive was greed, to settle their unpaid debts. Furthermore, they also confessed that they were willing to do anything to achieve this, which sadly included murder. The details of this crime are particularly saddening. After being abducted, Rie was handed.
Whoa. We're getting into the details now. Fuck. Like, I'm already tore up enough. I don't know if I want the details. Oh god, 6 minutes of details. I don't want to do it.
Cuffed inside the car and driven to a secluded area. The vehicle used to transport her belonged to Kenji and had been unlawfully obtained through one of his former fraud schemes through the dark web. Her bag was looted, which at the time contained 62,000 yen, the equivalent of $450 or £380. She was then further pressed to provide her bank card's PIN number, but unknown to all 3 of them at the time, she had given them a fake one. Shortly after this, Rie was then suffocated and beaten with a hammer approximately 30 times, and eventually, she heartbreakingly succumbed to her brutal injuries. The 3 assailants then stopped by a hardware store, purchased 2 shovels, headed out into the mountainous countryside, and at around 4:30 AM dumped her body in mid-tsunami. At around 9 AM that morning, they tried to withdraw money from her bank account using the PIN that Rie had provided them, 2960, or was it 2946, or 2460? Astoundingly, it seems that remembering 4 simple digits required far too much intelligence for these 3 men, as all 3 of them had forgotten what she had said. Despite already showing incredible levels of stupidity, it takes a special kind of stupid to come to the next conclusion. But since they had
Oh god, Adrian, you are coming in like... I love it. I love it. They're fucking stupid.
failed to make any money this time around, all 3 agreed to meet again later that evening to find another woman to abduct, rob and murder. However, as we all know, Before they could even get there, Kenji's conscience thankfully got the better of him. Following the loss of her daughter, Fumiko made it her mission to punish her 3 killers just as hard as they had punished her. And within 10 days of Rie's death, she had launched a campaign calling for the death penalty for all 3 men. By the 10th day, she'd received the support of 100,000 people. By October it was 150,000, and by December it was 318,000 signatures.
Hell yeah.
Not only that, but incredibly, even Yoshitomo's and Kenji's fathers begged the courts for the death penalty. Although single murders rarely face the death penalty in Japan, this case seemed to drum up a lot of anger in the general public.
Oh yeah.
And not only that, but recent trends showed that people favoured stricter punishments. Initial court proceedings began roughly 1 year later in September 2008. And in this first session, all 3 admitted to robbing and murdering Rie. They further admitted that things got out of hand when they tried to live up to their boasting online. This is because all 3 men had claimed that they'd murdered someone in the past, when in fact all 3 were lying to each other.
I'm cool, I murder people. No, I'm cool, I murder people. No, I'm cool because I murder people. In actuality, none of y'all fucking murder anyone. This was your first time and y'all fucking stupid.
Defense attorneys argued that Kenji, Tsukasa, and Yoshimoto should not be punished with the death penalty because Rie's death was supposedly accidental. They also argued that, historically speaking,
Yeah, because they accidentally beat her to death with a fucking hammer. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but that happens to me all the time. You just be walking around the neighborhood with your hammer, and your hammer just flies out your hand and starts beating people down. I mean, the fuck?
all single murder cases usually result in a life sentence and not the death penalty. Now, all 3 defendants disputed who was the primary assailant and mastermind behind the murder. Kenji insisted that Tsukasa was to blame, and Yoshitomo followed these allegations. But Tsukasa blamed Yoshitomo, claiming that he was the first to strike Rie. There were clear differences in attitude during these discussions. Although all 3 men seemed unfazed and emotionless over their actions, Tsukasa often made fun of Rie throughout court proceedings, where Kenji said that the victim was simply unlucky. But on March 18th, 2009, Judgment Day finally arrived. The district court
Simply unlike. I'd cry shut this some bitch in his fucking throat.
found all 3 defendants guilty of all charges, and as a result, Tsukasa and Yoshitomo were sentenced to death for their actions. It was ruled that their motives for the crime left no room for leniency, and that capital punishment was the only option. And Kenji was given a life sentence due to his early surrender. Although Rie's mother and ex-partner were both disappointed at Kenji's life being spared, it was widely recognized that a death sentence for Yoshitomo and Tsukasa was exceptionally strict when compared to similar cases. As expected, all 3 men appealed to have their sentences reduced, and while Yoshitomo's death sentence would be reduced to a life sentence, Tsukasa accepted his fate and withdrew his appeal. This resulted in both Yoshitomo and Kenji being spared their lives. However, for Tsukasa, that would not be the same. And on June 25th, 2015, he was executed via hanging. A sad side note to the story, but unknown to Fumiko at the time, Rie had actually been saving more than half her monthly salary to help buy her mother a new home. At the time of her death, she'd saved up more than 8 million yen, which is the equivalent of $59,000 or £50,000. If it wasn't for their forgetfulness, her assailants may have even got their hands on all that money. But thankfully, they were too stupid to remember 4 digits. Regretfully, I see much familiarity between this case and the story of Eve Carson. Both were bright young women with great prosperity ahead of them, and they were both caught up in their day-to-day lives when bad luck and merciless tragedy struck. They were targeted, hunted, robbed, and then murdered. And for what exactly? A few measly $100? The motive behind their deaths is, quite bluntly, almost entirely incomprehensible. An entire life filled with friends, family, partners, love, hope, friendship, and prosperity was ended to temporarily fix the financial burden of an irresponsible, low-life individual. The stark level of selfishness is entirely enraging, and now a mother has lost her one and only child. An array of people have lost a good friend, and a young woman has lost her life. To this day, Fumiko still gives lectures in various schools and places to talk about her daughter's story. She provides insights into keeping people safe on the streets, and even raises awareness of dangerous online behavior. And that's pretty much where we are today.
Damn, y'all. Saved all that money for a mommy a house. Oh God. Oh, those guys are pieces of shit. Oh God.
With Tsukasa dead, both Kenji and Yoshitomo remain alive and behind bars. Forever. And so concludes another video today, folks. Thank you so much for watching another video today by Coffeehouse Crime. If you found
Thank you, bud. Okay. Yeah, I'm fucking traumatized. Hmm. And at the end of it, she had saved like $59,000 for mom a new place. Hmm. Sound like one of the most sweetest people in the world. Trying to help her mom. Those three pieces of shit just had a little hard time, so let's just kill someone, take their fucking money, man. I'm sorry. People like that need to be stuck right in front of a fucking firing squad. And then bodies just left out there for the birds to eat. My opinion. You don't have to like if you don't want to. It's fine. Yeah, I don't care. Alright. That was a good video, though. Can't say I enjoyed it. That was awful. It was a good story. It really was. Adrian, he does this every time I'm watching. Like, he makes your brain go blah, 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 blah. It happens. I, I really enjoyed the story, though. Like, three the three fucking stooges came together just to murder one person to get like maybe 400 or 500 bucks. Poor girl was just trying to help her mother get a house. Done lost her father, and now her mother's got nothing. And all right, I gotta go. I can't stay here no more. Because if I do, I'm going to end up saying something I'm going to regret not saying earlier. So, as always, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Let's see what else is there. If you're a fan of the spooky, scary, strange, deranged, think about subscribing. Uh, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a thumbs up. I got that. Man, um, be good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. She was just unlucky. That motherfucker had the. How are you gonna kill someone? And they'd be like, oh, they was just not lucky.